3 in the morning. May 29th, 1453. 80,000 soldiers wait in darkness. Inside the city, church bells ring. Women kneel in prayer. Soldiers grip their swords tightly. The largest cannon ever built is aimed at walls that have stood 1,000 years. The man giving the order is 21. The man defending is the last Roman emperor. Only one of them will see sunrise. This is the final day of the Roman Empire. 1,500 years of history ending tonight. An empire that began with Augustus, dying on these walls. Every scene here has been reconstructed using AI. Every building and street brought back from memory. Constantinople, the richest city on earth, where East met West, and where everything ended. To understand what was lost that night, you must first understand what Constantinople was. Founded by Emperor Constantine in 330 AD, designed to be the new Rome. It succeeded. A city on a peninsula surrounded by water. The Bosporus, the Golden Horn, and the Marmara. Only the western side faced land. That side held the greatest fortification ever built. The Theodosian Walls. A triple line of walls and towers stretching 4 miles across the peninsula. No army in 1,000 years had broken through. Not the Arabs, not the Bulgars, nobody. Behind those walls stood Hagia Sophia, the largest cathedral in the world for 1,000 years. The hippodrome held 100,000 spectators. The palace had golden thrones and mechanical lions. Libraries preserved the knowledge of Greece and Rome. Texts lost everywhere else in Europe survived here. At its peak, 500,000 people lived here. London and Paris were muddy villages by comparison. Merchants from Venice, Genoa, and Persia filled the markets. Silk, spice, gold flowed through every street. Each night, a great chain closed the Golden Horn harbor. It blocked every ship from entering. For centuries, armies came and failed against these walls. Constantinople seemed eternal and invincible. But by 1453, the city that once ruled the world was dying from within. If stories like this matter to you, consider subscribing. It helps others find this history. The empire had been crumbling for centuries. The Fourth Crusade nearly destroyed it in 1204. Fellow Christians sacked Constantinople. They looted its treasures and occupied the city for 60 years. When the Byzantines reclaimed their capital in 1261, they found a city stripped bare. By the 1450s, the empire was almost nothing. Just Constantinople and a few scattered territories. Population collapsed from 500,000 to under 50,000. Entire neighborhoods lay abandoned and overgrown. The walls still stood, but there were not enough soldiers to man them. The treasury was empty. Surrounding this dying city on every side was the Ottoman Empire. Young and powerful and hungry for conquest. The Ottomans had conquered Greece, the Balkans, and Anatolia. Constantinople was an island in their empire. Emperor Constantine XI sent desperate letters to every Christian ruler, begging for help. Almost no one answered. The city would face the greatest army on earth completely alone. Sultan Mehmed II took power at 19. He had one obsession: Constantinople, the Red Apple. Muslim armies had dreamed of taking it for 800 years. Mehmed would finish the job. He was brilliant and ruthless. He spoke 6 languages. He studied warfare. He had a plan. He built a fortress at the narrowest point of the Bosporus, Rumeli Hisari, 4 months to complete. Now he controlled all shipping between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Constantinople was being strangled. When Byzantine ambassadors protested, Mehmed threatened to skin them alive if they returned to complain. Then he found a Hungarian engineer named Urban, who specialized in casting enormous bronze cannons. Urban had first approached the Byzantines. They could not afford him. so he went to Mehmed instead. The Sultan paid 4 times what Urban asked and gave him everything needed to build the weapon. What Urban built was 9 meters long with a 1-meter bore. Nothing like it ever existed. It hurled a 500-kilogram stone ball over a mile. The age of walls was ending. Moving the cannon from Edirne to Constantinople took 2 months. 60 oxen dragged it along reinforced roads. 200 men walked alongside to steady it. Bridges had to be rebuilt to bear the weight. When it arrived in March, the defenders saw it from the walls. They understood what it meant. The cannon fired 7 times a day. Each shot took hours to load. The barrel needed cooling. But Mehmed had dozens of cannons. Together, they could fire 100 shots every single day. The age of gunpowder was beginning. Constantinople would be the proof written in broken stone. On April 2nd, the Ottoman army appeared. 80,000 men stretching across the entire horizon. The defenders watched from the walls. Fewer than 8,000 to hold 12 miles of fortification. On April 5th, Mehmed demanded surrender. Convert to Islam and live freely. Resist and face destruction. Emperor Constantine refused. He would rather die defending the city than hand it to the Sultan. On April 6th, bombardment began. The first stone ball hit the Theodosian Walls with a deafening crack. A section of outer wall shattered into rubble. Dust hung like fog. The defenders stared in shock. Day after day, the cannon fired. Walls collapsed. Every night, the defenders rebuilt what they could. Women and children carried stones. Monks worked beside soldiers. Old men mixed mortar by torchlight. But what they rebuilt in darkness, the cannon destroyed again each morning. An impossible cycle of ruin. On April 20th, 4 Christian ships appeared on the horizon. 3 Genoese and 1 Byzantine transport. Mehmed sent his entire fleet, 100 warships against 4. The battle on the water lasted hours. The Christian ships broke through with higher decks and the wind behind them. They reached the harbor. Mehmed was furious. He had his admiral beaten. Then he devised a plan that stunned everyone. If his ships could not pass the chain, he would move them overland, around the harbor entirely. He built a road of greased logs behind Galata. 70 warships dragged overland into the Golden Horn. The defenders woke to find enemy ships inside the harbor. The chain was useless, surrounded completely. Weeks passed. Bombardment never stopped. The 1,000-year walls were slowly being ground to dust and gravel. The worst damage was at the Mesoteichion, the weakest section. Mehmed focused all his firepower there. Giovanni Giustiniani, a Genoese commander, led the defense. One of the finest military engineers in Europe. His men built barricades of earth and timber behind each breach. When walls fell, they plugged gaps. The Ottomans tried everything: direct assaults, tunnels under the walls. A massive siege tower rolled forward. The Byzantines burned the siege tower with Greek fire, the legendary weapon that burned even on water. They found the tunnels and flooded them from above. Every attack was met with desperate resistance. But the defenders were exhausted. 7 weeks of fighting with no rest. Food was running dangerously low. On May 22nd, a lunar eclipse darkened the sky. The people saw it as a terrible omen. Then thick fog came and a strange red glow appeared over Hagia Sophia. Even Mehmed was unsettled. The people believed divine protection was leaving them. The Sultan believed victory was being delivered to him. Mehmed set the date for the final assault, May 29th. Everything decided in one night. On the evening of May 28th, Constantine gathered his commanders for the very last time. Tomorrow would decide everything. He asked every man to fight for faith, family, and city. Then he rode through Constantinople one final time. People came out to watch. Many wept openly. How he stopped at Hagia Sophia. It was packed with people praying, Orthodox and Catholic side by side. Constantine prayed with them. Then he returned to the walls. He would not leave them again. Outside, the Ottoman camp blazed with firelight. Drums and prayers echoed from the surrounding hills all night. Mehmed promised 3 days of unrestricted plunder. Everything inside the city walls would belong to his soldiers. The soldiers roared. 53 days of waiting were ending. At 1:30, the fires went dark. The drums stopped. One moment of total silence. Then the order came and the earth shook. The first wave came screaming from darkness. Thousands of irregulars hurled at the walls as expendable shock. The defenders cut them down from the battlements. But this wave was never meant to break through. Its purpose was to exhaust the men behind the walls. And it worked. The defenders were spent. The second wave hit immediately. Anatolian regulars with ladders and hooks, better armed and better trained. Fighting at the Mesoteichion was savage. Men fought hand-to-hand on rubble of broken walls. For 2 hours, the defenders held the line. Then disaster struck at the worst possible moment. Justiniani, who had held the defense for 7 weeks, was struck by a crossbow bolt. He fell. His men carried him away. When Genoese soldiers saw their commander leave, morale collapsed in an instant. A gap opened in the line. The Byzantines tried to close it, but they were too few. At that same moment, Ottomans found a small gate left unlocked in the wall. The Kirkoporta gate. They pushed through and raised the Ottoman flag on the inner wall. Others saw and surged forward. The defense crumbled in minutes. Ottoman troops poured through the breaches and the open gate at once. Constantine saw the city was lost. He knew it was over. He knew what he must do. He tore off his imperial insignia so no one would recognize him. Then he drew his sword. Constantine XI charged into the enemy. The last Roman emperor died fighting in the breach. His body was never found. With him died an empire that had endured nearly 1,500 years. Ottoman soldiers flooded in. What followed was 3 days of looting, exactly as Mehmed had promised. Churches were stripped of gold and icons. Those who could not flee were killed or enslaved. Thousands fled to Hagia Sophia believing God would save them. The doors were smashed open regardless. Mehmed entered the city that afternoon. He rode to Hagia Sophia, dismounted, and knelt to pray. He ordered it converted to a mosque. Then he walked alone through the ruined great palace. Seeing the decay, he whispered Persian poetry about spiders spinning curtains in the Palace of Kings. On the third day, he stopped the looting. Constantinople would become Istanbul, his new imperial capital. The news sent shockwaves across Europe. Church bells rang in mourning. Popes called for new crusades. For many historians, this date marks the end of the Middle Ages and the modern world beginning. Scholars who fled carried manuscripts preserved for over 1,000 years. Knowledge that would reshape Europe. Many settled in Italy. The Greek texts they brought helped ignite the Renaissance. Ancient wisdom reborn. The fall disrupted trade routes to Asia. Merchants searched for sea routes. Columbus sailed within 40 years. One empire fell. From its ruins and scattered knowledge, an entirely new world began to emerge. The Theodosian Walls still stand in Istanbul. You can touch stones the defenders touched that final night. Hagia Sophia still stands. Cathedral for 1,000 years, mosque for 500. A mosque again today. After the fall, a legend grew. 2 priests were celebrating the liturgy when Ottoman soldiers entered. The priests walked into the cathedral wall and vanished. They say they have not returned since. They will return only when the city becomes Christian again. Centuries have passed. The wall remains sealed. Another legend says an angel turned Constantine to marble. He sleeps beneath the Golden Gate still. These are legends, but they reveal what Constantinople meant. Its people refused to accept it was gone. 1,100 years of civilization, 15 centuries of unbroken empire. It all ended in a single night. What fell was not just a city. It was the bridge between the ancient and modern worlds. Constantinople preserved Greek and Roman knowledge through centuries when Europe had completely forgotten it all. Its fall scattered that knowledge across the continent. From those scattered seeds, something extraordinary grew. The Renaissance, the Age of Exploration, the Scientific Revolution, all carrying traces of what Constantinople preserved. There is a darker lesson, but Constantine begged Europe for help. He warned them what was coming. Venice sent ships. They arrived after the city had already fallen. The fleet turned back at sea. Constantine could have fled. He could have negotiated. He chose to die fighting beside his soldiers. Some called it foolish. Others called it the noblest death in Roman history. It was the last. Today, Istanbul holds 16 million people. The Bosporus still glitters where Mehmed once strangled all trade. Tourists photograph Hagia Sophia not knowing that beneath their feet lie bones of a vanished empire. The walls crumble now from time and neglect. Weeds grow in towers where soldiers once stood watch. Stand on those walls at dawn when the city is quiet. The light turns gold. Listen closely. Bells, prayers, and the sound of a sword being drawn for the very last time. The last day of Rome. May 29th, 1453. The day the ancient world finally ended. Constantinople fell over 5 centuries ago, but its questions about empires and standing alone still remain. If this story moved you, others like it are on this channel. Subscribe and stay with us.